Welcome back to Post-Industrial Talk. I'm your host, Carmen Gentile, founder of Postindustrial.com. Typically, I'm joined by my co-host and friend, Mark Youngman. Mark is busy this week, so I'm going solo. That's something I want to talk to you about, just one thing, and it has to do with war crimes, right? You know the headlines. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth facing allegations that he double-tapped that boat that was allegedly carrying drugs in the Caribbean when two people defenseless were clinging to the wreckage of a boat that had already hit, and he ordered a second strike, allegedly, right? We're still going to go with that because I'm an old school journalist at heart, and everybody is not automatically proven guilty no matter how we feel about them, right? It's still allegedly. And so he's facing increased scrutiny about this. Now, a number of lawmakers have reportedly seen the video of the strike, and as you can imagine, Republicans see it one way, Democrats see it another, and we still don't have clarity as to what exactly happened. Although it does seem as though there is a lot of circling the wagons going on right now in the Trump administration regarding this event, finger pointing, Trump saying he knew nothing about it. Pete Hegseth said he wasn't there for the second strike, seemingly throwing an admiral who he ordered allegedly ordered to give the second strike under the bus. And in turn, we still don't have a clear idea of what happened. Regardless, it looks bad, right? And it seems to me as though some atrocious thing did happen. There's video of it, right? Two defenseless people clinging to this boat were summarily executed without any kind of due process. You know, this is not a situation where we as the United States, and especially the U.S. military, can be judge, jury, and executioner, although it seems like Trump would like it to be that case. That's just not the way it is. And if it is in fact proven that this second strike was ordered and this person, whether it be Hegseth, the admiral, or some other folks who were involved in this, could be in fact guilty of a war crime, that would be heinous. And if that in fact did happen, I hope, as I wrote in a recent column, that this event haunts their dreams and every waking moment of their lives, that they face serious repercussions for what they've done. Though let's be honest, if in fact it is proven they committed a war crime, Trump's just going to pardon them anyway, right? That being said, I think this is a good opportunity to examine not just this event, but other events in recent history, going back 50 or so years, of cases in which war crimes, or what we could legitimately call war crimes, were committed by American leaders, U.S. officials. In my recent column at postindustrial.com, if you go there right now, you'll see it at the top of the homepage, lay out just some of the worst atrocities that have been committed in recent years by U.S. leaders, starting with Henry Kissinger. For those who don't know, Henry Kissinger was the National Security Advisor turned Secretary of State for Richard Nixon, then Gerald Ford. In 1969, as National Security Advisor, Henry Kissinger oversaw a secret war in Cambodia. At the time we were at war with Vietnam. Secretly, he oversaw a bombing campaign that was so devastating in Cambodia, for which they had no authorization, killing up to 150,000 people. To this day, they're still feeling the repercussions of that bombing campaign in Cambodia. I have been to Cambodia, and I did some reporting there. This is years ago, but where children still find explosive ordnances on the ground and buried just slightly beneath the soil, and lose arms and limbs due to this fact. I interviewed a little boy who had lost an arm. It was so heartbreaking. And I talked to an organization that helps young people who have been similarly wounded by these leftover munitions from the Kissinger campaign in Cambodia, which was clearly a war crime. Adding insult to injury, Henry Kissinger, a few years later, was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. It's sickening, but it's true. Let's skip ahead a little bit in time to 2003. This is something that I can speak to personally. The initial invasion of Iraq. For those of you old enough to remember, we had the notion that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and that was the reasoning by which we were led to believe that we should go to war with this country. Now, I'm not defending Saddam Hussein. He was a heinous individual who did horrible things to the Shias in the south and to the Kurds in the north of that country. But the United States went into Iraq with phony reasons based on made-up intelligence regarding weapons of mass destruction, and killed an estimated 500,000 people or more during the time that they waged war in Iraq. I was there. I saw firsthand the kind of things that were happening. I was horrified by that war, and I think about it all the time to this day. We mutilated an entire population of people for really no reason. The idea being at the time that was pushed by not only George Bush, who was the president, and so, the buck stops with him, but really we know who the architects of that war were. Vice President Dick Cheney, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld. Both of these men were the ones who led the charge into the war in Iraq. They, in fact, if you believe Bob Woodward's reporting shortly after the events of the Iraq invasion, and they had initially been pushing for the U.S. to go to war against Iraq right after September 11. Instead of starting with Afghanistan, they wanted to go straight into Iraq, somehow linking, which there was no link between Osama bin Laden and Saddam Hussein. This, to me, was the most egregious war crime of my lifetime. So, for those who already think at this point that I'm playing partisan politics, that I'm just picking on Republicans for the heinous things they've done, hold on a second. Starting in 2009, President Obama used drone warfare more so than any other president at that point and since. And on a number of occasions, drones killed innocent people, including U.S. citizens. And when his efforts to target Al-Qaeda in the Middle East and Africa, the droning was at times based on faulty intelligence. Like I said, there were many innocents that were killed. It further radicalized large populations of the Middle East. And in my estimation, there was good reason for, at the time, for there to be a lot of upset folks about this, both on the left and the right. If you remember, for those who are old enough to remember, people were furious. Democratic and Republican lawmakers were asking about this. And Obama thought that instead of putting more troops in harm's way, although he did that anyway with the Afghan surge and the continuing war in Iraq, that he could drone his way out of global terror. Terrible idea. And I have more thoughts about Obama's foreign policy that are clearly not flattering. I would make a case that, like I said, there were war crime-like elements to that campaign as well. And Obama also received the Nobel Peace Prize. So I'm not trying to downplay the terrible thing that Pete Hegseth allegedly did. But this is something that unfortunately is part of a long history in the United States of potential war crimes being committed. There's a reason why we're not a part of the International Criminal Court. The United States does not participate in this body that is widely recognized as an international justice system. We can't participate in it because George Bush would be in prison. Other Bush administration officials would be in prison. there are potential Obama administration officials that would be in prison. That's why we're not a part of the International Criminal Court. That's why you see people, lawmakers on the left and the right, denouncing the ICC. There's a good reason for them to be afraid of the U.S. ever becoming a part of this international legal body, because we've committed war crimes. And that's something that we need to come to terms with and think about moving forward when we're electing leaders and holding them accountable for some of the terrible things that they've done. Anyway, I want you to give this some thought. I appreciate you taking the time to listen. Do me a favor, take a look at the column. Like I said, it's at the top of postindustrial.com right now. And do yourself a favor and subscribe to our free newsletter. And subscribe to the channel here as well, okay? Thanks.